mainly have only, if I think about it, have only worked in like newsroom settings and like here. Like I think I've only worked because the only jobs I've ever had, like since I was a teenager, I worked in like in my hometown newspaper. Like I've only been in newsrooms forever. Then I was in like briefly like a like a classroom, and I taught for a few years. And then I came back when I moved back here a few years ago. I was working out of my apartment and then came in here, and you were nice enough. It's only because of you that I started working in here, because I was going crazy because I was, alone in my apartment all the time. But this, I think, works for me, this studio setting, which we have shared with a lot of other people when pre-pandemic times, because it's kind of similar to a newsroom in that a lot of people are like, I do like being around the energy of that setting. So my only thing to you is I bet you have worked in many different kinds of settings. I wanted you to talk about it.
So many settings, so many different settings. In fact, I think my favorite setting was, and I still kind of pine for this kind of setting, was working as a waiter in a Soho restaurant. I think I did that I started off as a busboy at lunch, and then I eventually turned into a lunch waiter, and then a nighttime waiter, and then I became the expediter of food. That's the person who comes out and actually delivers your food.
How old were you?
I want to say, oh gosh, like, was I 20? I was in my mid-20s. I think I was in my mid-20s. It's after college, which I did not graduate from SUNY Purchase because I couldn't afford to go back to school, and they really loved me. I went there for art, and I transitioned to film. And my first year of film, my freshman year of film, I had my review. They loved everything I did, and they couldn't wait to see what I was going to do next year as a sophomore. And I had to tell them, I don't have any money to come back. And they said, God, if we did, what do you do? A scholarship?
Yeah.
They would have given me one, but they didn't do that at the time. So
they had no scholarships. They couldn't help you.
No. But they said that, so that was nice. Anyway.
Okay. So you went to work, and it was, but you weren't going to school and working.
No. When I went to school, I just did that and, made comics on the side and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm primarily a cartoonist, which has been either working at home or at a studio. But all the jobs I had before I became full-time freelance cartoonist, oh my God, so many jobs. I mean, I worked in film. I was a PA on several films, like If Lucy Fell was a movie. That was the movie that broke me, actually.
That nobody saw.
I don't know.
I remember when that came out. I remember getting the press materials for that movie.
Really? I forget the director's name, but I think it was like 3 a.m. I'm in the middle of the Brooklyn Bridge by myself with like 50-pound coils of some kind of wire that I had to sit with and a radio. And I was making like $60 for like a 10-hour day. And I was like, no way, I can't do this.
That was probably like that was late 90s, right?
Something like that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but I did have a new appreciation for production assistants, and I was like, they are a godsend to every film production. Anyway, I worked in film. I was on the Ice Storm. Several other movies that I worked on.
That's a great movie.
That's a great movie. But I did a lot of different kind of freelance gigs. I was like what do you call it? A file clerk at some kind of money insurance company. I even forget what it is now. I didn't understand it all. Everyone wore a tie, and there were all these Bloomberg machines on the side, and they were just trading money or something. And I was the guy who would file away papers that they had to keep, that maybe they shredded later. I don't know.
Wait, when was that also when you were younger, like in your 20s? Did you walk around thinking, if only these people knew how great I am? If they only knew the real me.
I felt that on a film set because I wanted to be a director of movies, But when I'm a file clerk or working part-time, I worked at another really good job called Cobite, Communication Billing Technologies. And that's actually where I met one of our studio mates, Jason Little, through a friend named Lisa Lippman, who's now Lisa Poland. She got married and had kids. And she was a big comics fan. And I don't remember how I met Lisa, probably at Small Press Expo or something like that. And she hooked me up with a gig where I actually learned Photoshop to be able to do the gig, which is to like create like graphics and like, buttons and stuff for internet projects and billing stuff and whatnot. And I'd make their like Christmas card and provide art. And when I wasn't doing any of that, I would be writing and drawing my own comics. So, in fact, I have a really funny little story if I could tell. And one of our neighbors was David Sedaris, the writer. I'm trying to think of other jobs. I had so many little jobs. I worked, like I said, in film and did industrials for a company called The Observatory, where I would take sound. In fact, one time I was taking sound and we were doing this interview with this guy, and it was so boring. I laid my head back, and I remember clearly that my eyes were open and I was listening for anything wrong with the sound. And at some point I heard snoring. And I was like, who the hell's snoring? It was me. I had like kind of fallen half asleep, so bored. And then finally they stopped the interview and they're like, Dean. And I was like, what? And they told me that I was snoring. I was like, no, I'm not. And it was me. Oh my gosh. Anyway. So I don't know. I mean, I've had lots of different jobs, but I think, the studio environment that you're talking about that, I introduced you to, that reminds you of the newsroom, which I'm curious to hear more about, because I feel like a newsroom, I mean, I guess they're the different departments, right? And like, how did they interact with each other? In a studio, an artist studio, everyone's working on their own, either personal project or a gig that they're working for a company. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of studio time, we're not sharing what we're doing, and not because it's a secret, but more because everyone's so immersed in their work that by the time they sit down, work for many hours, and then get up, they don't have time to show what they're working on. So you literally have to go and peek over someone's shoulder in order to see what they're doing, and to discuss. And some people are private, and some people, don't mind showing off their stuff. But what was it like working in a newsroom versus working in an artist studio?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I mean,
did you ever date the crossword guy?
The crossword guy.
Who'd make the crossword?
That would be great. Whoever did the crosswords never. I think a variety of people did the crosswords, but that would be great if I were working alongside. I mean, it was different. It depends on like where I was. Yeah, it was fun. Well, in New York, it's a little bit weird because it was like a bureau, so it wasn't a full, huge newsroom. It was a little bit smaller, and it's kind of a mix of people. So it was like, I was near like a finance reporter. Like everybody is sort of, but when you're in like a full newsroom, then it's a little bit more collaborative and interesting, usually because then I would probably be like sitting near a bunch of entertainment people and like. Like the graphics people would be like who I always have loved would be nearby. And so you can like work with them more. But like when I was here in the bureau, it wasn't as much like that.
So what was your favorite experience working among other people?
Oh my gosh. Well, like in a newsroom, because I mean, my favorite experiences are like when you're out, when you're not, and then sitting in a cubicle,
So part of your job is a roving like reporter type thing,
yeah,
right?
I mean, what I did, of course, though, I was often in a cubicle and I was like writing so much stuff all the time. But yeah, it's like way more fun to be out, in the field doing stuff than it is sitting at your desk. But I don't know. I love working on stuff. Like I really loved working with the anybody in like the art department, and I mean that's why I like being here too. But like the graphics department and coming up with projects or like video stuff. Yeah. I don't know. And sometimes even like I'm sorry. I was gonna say like sometimes, not that I really, looking back, there were lots of things I didn't love about it, but like big events, you would be there like all night, like working, and there's something to that that's kind of fun.
So with that's a job. I mean, you're having fun, you're around people you probably admire or despise, who knows, right? Like we all have feelings. but you must have had to create like some kind of a journalistic shorthand in order to take notes, or you're recording on a tape recorder, or you have a camera. I mean, this is before our smartphones, right?
What do you mean when I'm out?
Yeah, you're doing yeah. What do you do?
Yeah,
like,
well,
give us a tip.
You have like a recorder, or if it's like in the moment, like a red carpet, or like you've got to report like right then yeah, there is a short, like you get used to doing that. There's a shorthand, and you know how to talk to people and like pick out the right quotes and listen for quote. Yeah.
Are you doing that in front of someone while you're talking to them? Are you like?
Yes, you are.
Ooh, say that. Could you say that again?
Yeah, I mean, nobody does that now because you can, everybody records whatever. But yeah, I think every reporter can write and also maintain eye contact at the same time.
I've never had to do that, so I don't even know how to do that. A friend of mine who you also know, I don't want to say too much about his book idea, but he traveled a certain route, and the route had many stops, and he would get out and visit that place 3 times at different points of like a week or two, and observe everything and write it down, and like sometimes meet people, and often he was like in an area where they're like, who are you? What are you doing? That kind of a neighborhood, like they would point him out because he seemed like, like he didn't belong there, and he was writing things down, so that feels suspicious, Yeah. I feel like I would get nervous if I had a project like that, or when I've done like, slice of life stories, or, you ever been in a moment you realize, oh my God, this could be a great story. What's happening right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do?
All the time.
Do you live the moment?
Well,
or you start recording it, or
I mean,
what?
It was great when I used to have, when I felt that and I could write something. What's weird is now when I feel that, and it's like, well, in a way it's really nice because I don't have to like rush over, but I still do have that. I have that
impulse,
instinct.
the instinct.
Yeah.
But you are one of your 2021 projects is to do a daily comic book strip, which is based on your life.
Well, yeah, but that's interesting because a lot of that's it's not like news, related.
No, but you have to.
But it is pinpointing a moment. It is like picking out something.
Yeah, by the end of the day, if you haven't found that moment, you probably have to reflect on the day, because you have to be like, I need something for my
diary. Getting to
diary
that point
comic.
right now.
Right now.
Yeah.